Hey, it's Mr. Estrada here, and in this video we're going to be talking about perpendicular lines and how we can determine if two lines are perpendicular graphically and algebraically. So perpendicular lines are lines that intersect to form 90-degree angles. So you're looking at a pair of perpendicular lines right now. Line L and line M intersect at this point to form 90-degree angles. So they are perpendicular. And you should also be familiar with the symbol for perpendicular. The symbol for perpendicular is this one over here. So that symbol means perpendicular. So if I want to say, let me write that over, perpendicular. So if I want to say line L is perpendicular to line M, I can just write line L, use my symbol, and then write line M. So line L is perpendicular to line M. Perpendicular lines are all around you. If you're walking down the street and you look on the floor, you're very likely to see perpendicular lines that look like this. These are lines that intersect and they form 90-degree angles. Football field is full of perpendicular lines. And the baseball field, if you look at the third baseline and the first baseline, they form a 90-degree angle as well. So this is a very important fact about perpendicular lines. Perpendicular lines have slopes that are negative reciprocals of each other. And I'm going to highlight negative reciprocals because that's an important term to know. If you don't know what that term is, you're probably wondering, what's a negative reciprocal? Negative reciprocals are two fractions that are reciprocals of each other and have opposite signs. So for example, 1 over 2 and negative 2 over 1 are negative reciprocals because they are two fractions that are reciprocals of each other and have opposite signs. This is positive, this is negative, and the fractions are flipped. What would be the negative reciprocal of negative 3? Think about it for a minute. Well, first, you got to convert the whole number into a fraction. Now you're ready to flip the fraction and change the sign. So we flip the fraction, we get 1/3, and we change the sign of the fraction. This is a negative fraction, right? A negative over a positive is a negative. So if this is a negative fraction, the negative reciprocal should have a positive sign. So we leave it as 1/3. Let me throw a curveball at you. Suppose we have negative 4 over negative 3. What would be the negative reciprocal of that? Most students think incorrectly that the negative reciprocal of this is 3 over 4. It's not. It's actually negative 3 over 4. And let me explain why. In this fraction, we have a negative in the numerator and a negative in the denominator. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. So what that means is, essentially, this is a positive fraction, so the negative reciprocal should be negative, should have the opposite signs. This is positive, the negative reciprocal should be negative. Okay, so how do you determine if two lines are perpendicular on a graph? Here are 2 tips. Write them down. Okay, let's try an example. Here the question says, which of the graphs below have perpendicular lines? So using my tips, you should find the slope of line 1 and the slope of line 2 for each graph. So why don't you pause the video and figure out for me those slopes for each graph. So pause the video and see if you could do that for me. Okay, so I'm just going to paste that there. All right, so what's the slope of line 1? Well, the slope of line 1, you need to pick 2 exact points. So this is an exact, so sometimes it helps to zoom in so you can really tell what an exact point is. So let me zoom in. Where's my zoom function? So it's not, I think I zoomed in too much. Give me a minute to figure this out. All right, is that better? No, I don't think I'm going to be able to zoom in. This will actually work just fine. So here's line 1. I'm going to use this point and this point to calculate the slope. So it goes up 1 and it goes over 1, 2, 3, 4. So the slope of line 1 is 1 over 4. So the slope of line 1 is 1 over 4. What's the slope of line 2? I'll pick your 2 exact points, this one over here and this one over here. So it goes down 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1. So that's a negative slope, so it's down 4 over 1. These lines are perpendicular. So these are perpendicular. These are perpendicular lines. The slopes are negative reciprocals of each other. What about these over here? Let's zoom into them. So I'm going to just pick my 2 points for line 1, this one, and this one. So it goes up 3 over 4. So the slope of line 1 is 3 over 4. The slope of line 2, I can use this point here. It goes down 3 over 3. So that's actually going to reduce to 1. So the slope is negative 1 over 1. So what does that tell us about these 2 lines? It tells us that they are not perpendicular because the slopes are not negative reciprocals. Let's try another example where we have to do some algebraic work to tell if they are perpendicular. So here it says, are the following lines perpendicular? Explain. Well, we have to look at the slopes, and based on the slopes, we will say if the lines are perpendicular. So the slope of line 1 is 1 over 3. Let's find the slope of line 2. Well, we have to put this in y equals form first. So you divide everything by 6. These cancel out. We get y equals 2 over 6 reduces to 1 over 3. So we get 1 over 3x plus 1. So the slope of line 2 is 1 over 3. Are these lines perpendicular? They are not perpendicular. Not perpendicular because the slopes are not negative reciprocals. Negative reciprocals. Okay, let's try one more. So we got the same question with one of the lines different. So the slope of the first one is 1/3. What's the slope of the second line? Well, we got to get rid of this negative in front of the y, so we do that by dividing everything by -1. And we get y equals negative 3 over 1 plus, sorry, this should be a -1, so it should be minus, and I forgot an x here, 6. So the slope of line 2 is negative 3 over 1. So these are negative reciprocals of each other, aren't they? So yes, they are perpendicular lines because the slopes are negative reciprocals. because the slopes are negative reciprocals. All right, if you want some steps for the algebraic part, let me give you those steps now. So if you want to tell if two linear equations are perpendicular, right, algebraically, if necessary, put the equations in y equals mx plus b form. Then you analyze the slopes. If they are negative reciprocals, they are perpendicular. Okay, I hope this video helps. Take care.